Alright guys, so continuing the Cannes Film Festival coverage, today's movie I'm going to be talking about on the channel is the highly anticipated fifth installment of the Indiana Jones franchise. It's called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This was one of my most anticipated films in the lineup. I was so excited to see this. I know there were some red flags from the get-go that this being an Indiana Jones movie without Steven Spielberg was something to be worried about, but I had faith in James Mangold because he did a wonderful job of letting another cinematic hero bow out with grace and dignity, and that was with Hugh Jackman in his most iconic role, Logan. So I was hoping that James Mangold would be able to do the same for Indiana Jones, and so what did I think of it? Oy vey, this is tough, because I love the Indiana Jones movies so much. But sadly, I came out of this movie disappointed. I wish I liked it more, like there's elements of it that I like, but yeah, I can't help but feel it was a bit of a letdown. The film opens with a prologue in 1944. It's essentially a flashback to a much younger version of Indiana Jones, who is still played by Harrison Ford, but he's been de-aged significantly, and I'll say this, the de-aging software is fantastic. He does look very convincing. It looks like we're looking at old stock footage of Harrison Ford back in the day, but there is a little bit of a clash when you hear him talk, because when he speaks his lines in these flashbacks, he does sound quite old and gravelly, like, you know, like he's been around the block. So young face, but old voice, essentially. Anyway, he's on a quest to try and retrieve some stolen historical artifacts from the Nazis, along with the help of his friend Basil Shaw, who's played by Toby Jones. They encounter a Nazi physicist called Jürgen Woller, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who is the baddie of the film, who has one half of this ancient dial. They don't actually reveal what this dial can do, but it belonged to Archimedes, and it was split into two to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. We then jump forward to 1969, where Indiana Jones is now much older. He's 70 years old. He's living in a flat in New York, and he's on the cusp of retiring from his job as a professor. He hasn't been on an archaeological adventure for quite some time. He hung up the fedora and the whip many, many years ago. But all that changes when Basil Shaw's daughter, who's called Helena Shaw, she's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge and is also Indiana Jones's goddaughter. She shows up, tells him about the clues that her deceased father left regarding Archimedes' dial, and she pulls him back in for one more globe-trotting escapade to try and find the dials before Mads Mikkelsen can get his hands on them. So yeah, that's the plot, and I can see why James Mangold and the three other screenwriters went down this path, because it's quintessential indie, you know, find the MacGuffin before the Nazis do. The only problem with that, though, is that it is kind of a retread of Raiders of the Lost Ark, so it doesn't feel as fresh. So what did I like about the Dial of Destiny? I think my biggest takeaway from this film is that it really is a celebration of Harrison Ford's tenure in the role of Indiana Jones. Like, it is wonderful to see him pick up the fedora and the whip again and, you know, ease back into the role. After Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a bit of a disappointment, I was hoping this might be the heroic send-off that he deserved. I don't think it fully delivers on that promise, but the film does have its fun moments, and Harrison Ford really does shine this. He is the standout for me in this, because even though he's getting into all sorts of mishaps with a lot of interesting creative action set pieces, there's also lots of moments for pathos and sympathy for him as well. Like, there's quieter moments where we find out more about what's gone on with his marriage with Marion, what happened to Mutt, who was played by Shia LaBeouf in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and those moments do add some emotion to the movie, I'll say that. I would say Harrison Ford's performance is at its best here in those smaller, more vulnerable moments. But I would say that my biggest problem with this film is the screenplay. It does feel quite scattershot. And I wonder if it's a case of there being too many chefs in the kitchen, because there were 4 screenwriters involved in making the screenplay for this movie. And while it's evident that the screenwriters have a lot of love for the Indiana Jones movies and the character, it just feels like they're all trying to throw in their ideas and trying to stitch them together in some way. And like, okay, let's have him ride a horse, or let's have him explore a sunken shipwreck. Let's make sure there's a scene with, you know, a booby-trapped cave system. Like, it's a tick list of Indiana Jones criteria, but the way it's all stitched together into a story, it just feels a little scattershot. I'm honestly not too sure how Indiana Jones devotee fans are gonna feel about it. Like, they're probably gonna love the nods and references to Indy's previous adventures and all that. And there are some Easter eggs in this, but it's not like, you know, fan service for the sake of fan service. Like, it's quite subtle, and that was nicely done. But yeah, as one of Indy's adventures go, it does feel more akin to Crystal Skull than it does Raiders through Last Crusade. Like, the final act of this film is even more bizarre than The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think for a lot of people, that will be when they check out the movie. That's where it's going to lose them. But if you can, you know, detach your critical analysis of the film and just remember that it's based off the adventure serials of the 1930s and 40s, when, even though the plot lines are a bit convoluted, you can still buy into them, then you can have a good time with this. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, myself included, I did find it a bit hard to grasp. I found it a bit too implausible for what I was seeing on the screen. Let's talk about Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena Shaw. After I came out of the cinema, myself and the Oscar expert had a discussion about this film, and I asked him, what were your favourite highlights of the film? And the first thing he said was Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I was interested to know why. And it's because he hadn't really seen a lot of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's work before this. He wasn't familiar with Fleabag. And I think this movie is going to introduce Phoebe Waller-Bridge to a whole new international audience. And I think so many people are going to fall in love with Phoebe Waller-Bridge for this role because it's so very her. It's channeling a lot of that quirky, awkward, but also intelligent humor from Fleabag. But for me, when I was watching the movie, all I was getting in certain scenes was Fleabag. So, yeah, it doesn't really feel like she's playing too much of a different character to me. Like, there were certain moments in the cinema where I was just expecting her to turn to the audience and, like, you know, talk to us, break the fourth wall, because that's what she does. And then there's just certain moments where I was just like, I'm watching Fleabag right now. So yeah, I am quite interested to see how people respond to Phoebe Waller-Bridge's performance. I think some people are going to say, it's brilliant, she's one of the best things about the movie, and other people are going to say, well, she's just doing Fleabag. I will say this though, she makes a wonderful counterpoint to Harrison Ford. They are a great odd pairing in this movie. Like, she challenges him, she is forthright and self-sufficient and very quick-witted, and she bounces off of him really great, and he's just the old stick in the mud, you know, he's set in his ways, he's a grump. And yeah, they have a lovely chalk and cheese chemistry, and yeah, I did enjoy watching them together. I will say though, not all the attempts of humour quite hit the mark though. Like, some of the jokes really did fall flat. But yeah, my other issue with this film is that apart from Harrison Ford and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, all the other characters in this really don't have a whole lot to work with. Mads Mikkelsen does the best he can with the paper-thin material that he's got playing the villain. All I'm saying is, if you've got Mads Mikkelsen, don't waste Mads Mikkelsen. Antonio Banderas stops by for a thankless part as one of Indy's buddies with a boat, Reynaldo. And even this film's substitution for, like, the short round character from Temple of Doom didn't quite hit the mark for me. You've got this little pickpocket character called Teddy, played by Ethann Isidore, and he's fine in the role, but he just doesn't have the same cute, sparky energy that Ke Huy Quan had in Temple of Doom. Sadly, he's just a very forgettable character. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch it again? If I was doing an Indiana Jones binge watch, then yes, I probably would sit through it again. There's enough fun here for me to justify revisiting it someday, but I'm not going to be in a rush to see this again at the cinema when I get back to the UK. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? I recommend Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny for anyone that's looking for a fun adventure with lots of action. Like, there is buckets of action in this movie, so it is a fun time at the cinema. It is a big, summery, popcorn movie. So if that's your bag, then yeah, go for it. However, indie fans, I would say, there's some good stuff in here, but it doesn't quite stick the landing, so I'd say we maybe go in with lower expectations, so at least that way it might surpass them. Because I went in with pretty high expectations and it definitely did not meet them. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? Dial of Destiny is a fun enough but flawed final film for the Indiana Jones series. Like, it is a wonderful send-off for Harrison Ford. He is the best thing about it. Great chemistry with Phoebe Waller-Bridge as well. But I did walk away from this disappointed. Like, all the indie elements were there. It's like Mangold followed Steven Spielberg's recipe, but the end product, when he took it out of the oven, just did not taste like an Indiana Jones movie should. It came up short for me. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed by it. So I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny a score of 4.5 out of 10. But as always, guys, just one bloke's opinion. I'd love to hear from you. Are you still excited for Dial of Destiny? If you've seen it, what did you make of it? Also, which is your least favorite Indiana Jones movie? I'm kind of curious to see which comes out on top, Crystal Skull or Dial of Destiny. Whatever you have to say, do let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, help me out with hitting the little like button. For more movie, TV, and Oscars-related content, and Cannes-related content, don't forget to click subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for watching, guys, for all things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture. I'm Luke Cafield, and I'll see you next time.